Hello, my name is Dr. Jesvia Mahil, and the purpose of this video is to speak about how I coach apprentices in the workplace. I see coaching as both an art and a science, and I use an eclectic, multidisciplinary approach drawing on theories from systems thinking, humanist psychology, cognitive psychology, and also we are coaching in the workplace. Apprentices have a mentor and also a coach, as well as a trainer and an assessor. The mentor is usually the line manager, someone with a greater level of skills, experience, and in terms of their position, they have power to discipline and to influence the apprentice in terms of their roles and responsibilities. As a coach, there isn't this relationship of a hierarchical power over the apprentice, and my role as a coach is to support, to challenge, and to provide appropriate feedback to make sure that the apprentice completes the course on time. And the motivation is through inspiration rather than discipline. We need to be aware of the boundaries of coaching. Coaching is quite distinct from therapy, so it is not a tool that can be used for dealing with issues such as depression or addictions or self-harm that may take place in the workplace. If there were symptoms of any of these personal issues apparent in the workplace, then the apprentice would need to be signposted appropriately to seek pastoral care through counselling or through appropriate therapies. And coaching is not consultation either. Even though as a coach I may have the skills and the expertise, it is not my role to offer expert advice. I'm there to support, to challenge, not to suggest better ways of doing things through following on my advice. So it's quite distinct from the role of a consultant. I said earlier that I see coaching as both a science and an art. And when I look at coaching as a science, I draw on the theories from behaviorism, where we look for visible, tangible, external evidence-based outcomes. And the behaviors that we may look for are that the apprentice is improving their level of professionalism, they are demonstrating fairness, consistency, they're impartial, they're open, they're using appropriate language in the workplace. And also we may see evidence that they're taking responsibility, they're taking initiative, and they are accountable for their actions. They don't blame others, they take responsibility. And we could see tangible evidence that the apprentice is being inclusive, they're approachable, they're able to build trust with a diverse range of colleagues, and they're agile in meeting the needs of the organisation. They are obviously very creative, innovative, they're responsive, and they demonstrate flexibility. And when we look at coaching as an art, I draw on theories from humanism and from cognitive psychology. And here the impact of coaching may occur at an invisible, intangible level, where the apprentice may feel internal benefits of the coaching relationship. They may say that they feel more self-confident, they're less anxious, they are not worrying as much, even though these internal behaviors may not manifest themselves in overtly or explicitly in the workplace. The apprentice feels this, and so we can rely on their own self-reflections of this. They are more self-aware, maybe their perceptions have changed. They're able to see things from a range of perspectives rather than just their own perspective or a couple of different perspectives. And maybe they are making less assumptions. They're not relying on stereotypes or generalizations. Maybe they are distorting less information. So these kinds of internal paradigm shifts may not be visible explicitly, but from the self-reflections of the apprentice, we can demonstrate that change has occurred. There is a level of transformation. I tend to use a systems thinking model of coaching, and the easiest way to describe systems thinking is that it's based on the ancient Greek philosophy that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The context is very important. In the relationship between a coach and an apprentice, there are many stakeholders involved in that coaching contract. The coaching contract is not merely between the coach and the apprentice. It needs to include the line manager, the training provider. We need to be aware of the outcomes desired by the funders, the government, the taxpayers. So we need to look at the context in which that coaching relationship is occurring, where there are many stakeholders involved. And the coaching relationship can stimulate change through shifting patterns of interaction, which in turn have an impact on the interaction of the apprentice in the organisation, and their performance will have a knock-on impact on others. And very often in this coaching relationship, there is emergence of insights and creativity and innovation. And this can occur through a coaching conversation, a professional discussion, or team discussions, but insights or ideas emerge as if from nowhere through these conversations, through these interactions. And value can be added through synthesis of existing ideas, concepts, and resources. For example, when we have a meeting between people from different areas of the organization, the synthesis of knowledge and skills from one area of the business merged with another area of the business, they share best practice, and through this synthesis, they add value. They find more efficient or more effective ways of doing things. And systems thinking coaching focuses on the fact that very tiny changes can make a huge impact. The action itself doesn't need to be a huge action. As long as it's got an appropriate leverage, even a very tiny action can make a huge impact. Nothing is permanent, and so through systems thinking coaching, we are aware that goals can change in line with external or internal factors that have an impact on the organization. We need sometimes to decompose the goals, reshape them, and adapt to what is necessary, what is effective in the current situation, not 6 months ago when those goals were first set. So the goals need to be a work in action, that we need to be aware that they're not set in concrete, and we do need to sometimes modify them. Through feedback, the feedback needs to be regular, reliable, and also multi-directional. The feedback isn't just from the coach to the apprentice, it's also from the apprentice to the coach, and from the line manager, and from other stakeholders that are involved, for example, the training provider. So we need to take into account the various different perspectives and have multi-directional feedback loops. And I use coaching tools and techniques, as I said earlier, from different sources. I have an eclectic approach to coaching. I use strategies from solutions-focused coaching, from NLP, coactive coaching, and also the GROW model. And solutions-focused coaching, there are various assumptions made in this style of coaching. First of all, we focus on solutions, not the problems. And we're aware that the action takes place in the interaction. That's the relationship or the patterns that shift due to shifting dynamics between relationships. And very importantly, we make use of the resources that are available to us. So we make use of what's already present. We think about possibilities in the present and possibilities, opportunities in the future. And the language that we use is simple language. So we're not getting caught up in trying to use complex language, because usually like a word the more articulate we are, the easier it is for us to be understood, and that's the point of the communication. And we need to bear in mind that every case is unique. From NLP, similar kind of assumptions. Most most importantly, that when we are defining our outcomes, we need to know precisely what we want in order to take the appropriate actions to get to that desired outcome. And the relationship is again very important. The rapport between the coach and the apprentice is important, and this can occur through matching, through mirroring, in order to create positive and harmonious communication. And sensory acuity is really important. The coach and also the apprentice needs to pay attention and to be observant of the language that we're using, our body language, and the gestures, and how paying attention to our state of being. And feedback is important. So when we set goals, we need to be aware of our processes in terms of monitoring and tracking the progress that we're making. So how will we know that we are making the desired changes in order to achieve the outcome? Flexibility is important, responding to feedback and doing things differently. So not if we're same thing again and again, expecting different results. So flexibility in terms of being able to shift the way we're doing things. In NLP, we look at the neurological levels. So we look at the complex interrelationships between identity, values, beliefs, skills, behavior, and the environment. So an apprentice could make a change at any one of these levels, but it will have an impact on the other level. So something could shift in their environment, something external to their role or their responsibility. So, maybe they get transferred to a different office, so their environment has changed, and that in turn will have an impact on their behavior. Maybe they will need to sharpen their skills, or at the identity level, their role may change. They may be given a different job, and so their identity in that role will change, and that will have a knock-on impact on also their level of skills and their behavior. Maybe they need to upskill in order to do that particular job more effectively. And with coactive coaching, the assumptions, similarly to NLP and to systems thinking, are that the client doesn't need to be fixed. They already have the resources. The client is already resourceful. The apprentice is assumed to be creative and to be whole. And we look at the client's whole life. There may be things happening in their personal life which are having an impact on their punctuality or their attendance at work, and so we would address their life as a whole so that they are performing at a higher level in the workplace and overcoming all those barriers or obstacles that are happening outside of work which are having an impact on their work. And the agenda comes from the client. It comes from, and the client is not only the apprentice, the client is the apprentice and their line manager. And also, as the coach, we need to make sure that we're meeting the expectations of the training provider that we're representing in that relationship. And the relationship between these different stakeholders is a designed alliance, and we need to be aware of the expectations of each person in that designed alliance. And the GROW model is really useful for target setting and for monitoring performance. So we start with the goals that we have in mind, and we look at the gap between the goals that we want to achieve and our current reality, our situation in the present time. And we look at the options, all the different options that are available to us, and then we look at the actions that we're willing to take. What are we willing to do in order to move forward towards achieving our goals? So using NLP, using solutions focus, using the coactive approach and the GROW model, and there are others, but I think these models and these approaches and strategies are the ones that I've used most consistently because they meet the unique needs of different clients. And if you would like to read further about any of these approaches, then here is the list of books that I tend to use very regularly. So thank you very much for listening to this talk, and if you have any questions, then please email me at jesvia@jesvia.com. Bye for now.